Well, it is with great anticipation and excitement that I have Larry Goldberg with us on Tuesday night, which will not be his regular night. His regular night will be Monday night, but he had a much better offer last night, right, Larry?
No, we just had a lot of stuff going on. I had a dinner for a family friend last night, so.
And for those of you who are not regulars on the channel, I want to say a couple of things right off the bat. The reason I have Larry on is because Larry has massive and huge experience, including owning software companies in South Africa, India, London, Israel, and the United States. Did I get it right?
Yep, you sure did. There was a moment there with Geneva as well, but it was an office without much of activity.
Whereas some of these other companies were bigger than my companies. So, that's why I have Larry on. And he's also a huge Tesla enthusiast, but has varying some things that he and I don't agree on, which makes it great. Also, you'll notice we're both wearing Stars of David today. For those of you who are regulars, you know why. For those of you who don't know why, at the very end, when we've covered everything else, Larry and I will have a little conversation about that for those of you who are interested. And then you'll know from now on what's going on. All right. So, Larry.
Yes, sir.
It was a beautiful day today.
It was.
Pretty much everything went well today. Tesla, this morning, I said, I don't know why, but I just think it's going to end up in the green, even though it was, battered down in the beginning. And somehow it struggled and got back into the green by the end of the day. It was
But Randy, with great respect,
yes,
you always expect Tesla to go up.
I even said that. So you're right. All right. So let's talk about the competition. And let me start by saying, and Larry, you can disagree with me. I hope that Lucid and Rivian are both successful.
Yeah.
I think Lucid is kind of not a very great company. Rivian seems to be a fine company, and I hope that both of them succeed. We need as many of these EV companies to succeed as possible. But I personally have real concern that Lucid will not make it. And Rivian seems to be showing that they're doing okay. What did you think, Larry?
Yeah, I'm aligned with you. Look, we want as much EV activity and variation. And, the great thing about these two companies, Lucid and Rivian, is they don't compete with Tesla. They both have, niches in the marketplace that are very different to Tesla. I will say that Rivian has got, I think, the much better positioning.
Yes.
They have focused on a niche in the marketplace that, Tesla was not in. They've done very well in terms of building this van for Amazon, and now they're no longer bound to sell only to Amazon. They're opening the marketplace. I think they'll do very well from a market point of view. Their cost, I'll talk about their cost in a minute. And certainly their trucks, I see a lot of them on the road in our area, and I'm sure you do too. They've had a really, really, really good reviews, not only by the magazines and the reviewers, but actually owners. And they're really doing this very thoughtfully, and I think that they will be successful. Now, neither of these two companies have got their cost structures aligned yet.
Yes.
That's not the end of the world. I mean, Tesla took, 8 years, 9 years to get there. But I will say that Lucid does not seem to be going in the right direction from a lot of perspectives. I mean, Lucid really did, very high-end engineering. They've got really, really outstanding engineering, but at tremendous expense and enormous overhead. And what amazes me is they have a factory. I've actually seen the factory. I drove past the factory on one of my tours. Now they're building a second one. It doesn't compute. It just doesn't compute. They haven't reached volumes they haven't reached anything like the volumes they intended in their first factory. And now they're opening a second factory, and their costs just don't seem to be coming into line.
And it was interesting, Larry, to see the tale of two companies, both reporting on the same day. One dropping their expectations for the rest of the year in units, the other one raising. One of them missing on profits, the other one beating on profits.
Yeah,
it was the same companies. So Rivian just seems to be a better run company, a company that's, as you said, I like the word thoughtful, who seems to have a business plan that makes sense, and they continue to hit or exceed expectations, which is what you like to see. And Lucid seems to always be missing expectations over and over again, which is kind of not great.
Yeah, I'm seriously thinking about a small investment in Rivian. I tend to be a little bit later than this early. I invest in venture companies, and in a way, Rivian is a venture company. I may be able to put it into that part of my portfolio, but honestly, my investments, my equity investments, whether it's in startups or whether it's in private equity or whether it's in the market, tends to be a very small percentage of my portfolio, because that's just how I invest. But I'd have to give some thought and look at Rivian seriously, but I wouldn't touch Lucid, not on the long end. They may be a short play.
Sure. Yes. Okay. So we had this news, which I did report this morning, that India making front page headlines in the India Times, that the country seems to be very anxious to do whatever is necessary to get Tesla on board. I saw headlines later in the day today saying that Tesla will definitely be starting to do something there in early 2024, but of course none of this is coming from Tesla headquarters. So this is all sounds great, but I guess it's you have to call it speculation so far.
Yeah, well, Nihal Trivedi and I were on your channel, and we spoke about the prospect for Tesla coming to India. And this, the problem with India is that there are going to be these rumors that are completely unfounded, and there may be some rumors that for which there is a foundation. It makes all the sense in the world. I mean, this is the ideal market for next gen. This is the ideal market for mega packs. India will not import cars from China. It won't happen. So, and India would be a natural place to export from to some markets in the Indo-Pacific. Particularly, if times get very complex with China. So I would say that the news makes sense. The problem is, these rumors in India are just, they bubble up all the time. But were I running Tesla, I would be looking at India very, very seriously.
Well, it sounds awfully promising, and it'll be super interesting to see if that does come to be true, especially if it's early in 2024. I think most of us were expecting maybe Elon would go over there sometime end of first quarter. Maybe we'd be looking at breaking ground later in the year. But right now, it's sounding like there's a lot of activity. So we'll see what happens on that. But
I think it'll be a little while before they break ground. India does not move
quickly.
And if you think Mexico is going slow, and you think Germany went slow, India is not, Shanghai. I mean, it's not. I know India very well. And, they could well fast track it, but.
Yeah. Well, speaking of China, we have lots of rumors and speculation from people that are not given to speculation, like Gary Black saying that Tesla will be increasing a couple more of their Model Y models later in the week, maybe as early as Thursday, by a couple $1,000.
Increasing the price of.
Raising the price. I'm sorry, they're raising the price of a couple $1,000 later this week. So that would certainly be good for the stock.
Yeah, I think people, I know we're very focused on margins, and certainly Gary is, because his whole thesis on Tesla is based upon the car company and some of the other components. But he has in recent months, quarters, added some components, but it's
especially energy.
Yes. And FSD, by the way, there's a component of FSD as well. So, but yeah, the margins are very important, and they really track the pricing from a margin point of view. So yeah, it's important. But I'm looking beyond the next year and the year after. So for me, it's fine for trading if you're going to trade, and I do sometimes trade around,
Yes, you do.
earnings and so on.
We've seen you make some money doing that, Larry.
Yes, I do sometimes. But I think that it's kind of just, it's a margin to the story.
Yes.
Right. It's not foundational to Tesla.
Yes.
And it's marginal to their margins. Now, everybody throws BYD and BYD, this and that at my, in my face. And it's absolutely true. BYD is a fierce competitor. I haven't done the actual investigation of their latest quarter. I've looked at earlier quarters, and what's going on in that income statement and balance sheet, I'm not, I don't want to be negative about it. It's not transparent.
Yeah, well, their third quarter earnings were actually pretty good. Their margins and their operating margins were also very good, but their cash flow.
Yeah, and it was very hard to pin that cash flow down. People said, oh, well, they're opening markets in this and that market, but that should not impact the cash flow the way it did.
Yeah.
So I haven't done the investigation yet, but I think it needs some forensic accounting here, because it's not tracking.
Yes.
For me, it's not tracking. Anyway, I shouldn't be commenting, but yes, the news is relatively positive. We've seen some very positive signs out of China. The numbers have been positive. They exported to Europe a very large number of the Highland right at the outset. So it was we didn't have visibility into the marketplace, but the stories we're getting are pretty good.
Right.
So this could be a good quarter. I mean, I've been very optimistic on the quarter. A lot of people have been very pessimistic, but we'll see.
So Tesla's spokesperson in Shanghai did a little video. Tao Lin said that the Shanghai mega factory for megapack production will cover the global market.
Yeah.
So I thought the fact that she brought it up was interesting. I talked a little bit about this with Brian White yesterday, and he agreed with me. She wouldn't have brought this up if this factory wasn't underway. This factory is probably ready to start making product or close.
Yeah, I didn't think we're going to see product out of the factory this quarter, and probably not next quarter. When China gets underway, it moves very rapidly, as we found out. And they know a lot about making megapacks now, the latest version of the megapack. I think it'll wind up much faster than the local one. But people are funny. I mean, some of the bulls get very bent out of shape if Tesla make an announcement in like September, and if a factory is not operating and producing goods by October. It's crazy. I mean, you make an announcement you're going to build a factory. Well, you first have to, break ground. First, you've got to get through the the approvals, then you got to break ground, then you got to build the factory, then you got to, I mean, people are crazy. You know, sometime late next year or early the following year, they'll start shipping. But until then, I don't think
Well,
so.
I'm a little more optimistic than you, but I do believe that I think that they could potentially start shipping in the first half of this year, maybe later in
Of next year.
I'm sorry, 2024. Yeah, the second half of, I mean, first half of next
Not going to
year.
happen, Randy.
Well, it was only 9 months, Larry, that it took them to they start shipping from the day they started to the day they started shipping was only
I
9 months.
know, but we haven't seen evidence that they're building a factory, that the factory is going up
I
yet.
think that was evidence. That's my point.
Yeah, it's evidence that that whatever approvals they needed, they've got, and they're on their way. But we haven't seen, you know, walls go up, fields, you know.
No, I agree. We don't have a
Putting-
lot of evidence, but
Yeah.
based on what happened in Lathrop, we didn't know it even existed until my book came out.
Now, you know, we do know the location of the factory, and that's why I'm a little, you know,
Oh,
I was thinking we should see it. Yeah, we know the location of the factory. We've seen it in some videos. I must go and look this up and see
Yeah.
if we can resolve this mystery.
okay,
And
good.
we should probably reach out to some of our Chinese Air Force. and
No,
find
they're not able to fly anymore. They've completely shut them down.
around the
Shanghai.
Tesla factory, but I'm
Right.
talking about for the mega factory.
Oh, I see. I don't know.
Mega
I don't know about that part. Yes.
Yep, I don't either. Yeah.
So if we really want to, do speculation, and you know how much I love to speculate, but this is my favorite subject. So a new position for the Optimus team. The Tesla team has a new job posting for a manufacturing engineer to build humanoid robots for engineering validation purposes. And here's my favorite line, and I'm going to go to sleep so soundly tonight with this one line: to support high volume launch around the globe. Yeah.
The moment I saw that, I thought Randy is going to be so happy. So firstly, we should just calm down. They are not going to ship humanoid robots anytime soon. I mean,
You say so.
they're not going to ship, if they ship next year, I will be so pleased, but I kind of doubt it.
Okay, well, anyway, I thought it was interesting that they used the language, somebody sat down and thought this through to support high volume launch around the globe.
Yeah.
And they've got over 50 other positions that they've recently put up on the board for people in all kinds of jobs that are very specific to manufacturing. So anyway, I'm excited. And yes, of course, I'm sure it'll be longer than I think it'll be, but maybe it'll be shorter than you think.
Well,
go ahead.
Look, manufacturing engineering is not manufacturing.
Yes.
It's thinking about how to manufacture and designing how to manufacture. So that's the first thing I would want to say. The second thing I want to say is that the AI, the training,
Yes,
for Optimus is by no means trivial.
we agree.
Building Optimus is very challenging. Building Optimus in volume is very challenging, but not anything as challenging as the vision support for the robot. So I'm really very hopeful that this next release, or the release of vision-based, full end-to-end AI is going to be quite revolutionary, but I am not yet convinced that we're going to be under 3 years to get FSD, even with that, because I think it's going to be a long cycle. The cycle with the robot is going to be shorter, in my view.
Yes, of course.
And not for general requirements, but for specific requirements.
Well,
And-
yeah, I think
So, Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna, I think that is, the part that it's almost impossible for us to know until they really show us something. And of course, my current hope is that they're going to have a live working bot at the handover on the 30th that will do something useful.
Yeah. They will have a live working bot that will do a demonstration. Whether that will be, quote, something useful that they would want to put into a factory, I highly doubt, but I'd be delighted to see it. And I think we should accept that the early shipments of the bots are going to be for testing and for trials and for use case, training and stuff like that. And so it's going to be step by step. Obviously, they're going to roll out to the Tesla factories very much earlier and very much quicker in order to get experience in the training and starting with, very menial tasks leading to more complex tasks. But I agree with you that it's going to happen faster than the car ever happened. And China's talking about delivering in 2 years' time. Why did they announce that?
China. So let's make sure people understand. I have not reported this yet. So we have China saying that they want to get into the humanoid robot business, and they put a timeline on themselves of producing and shipping within 2 years. You would think that this would not have been, I would think that they would have had a conversation with Elon before they made this statement. If they're going to get into the business and they got Elon on right there in their backyard, that they probably would have at least picked up the phone.
I have no doubt that there were conversations, and I have no doubt that their focus on the robot business was inspired by Elon and by some of the statements he's made. And they've joined the race, and they are frightening.
Yeah.
And so, firstly, they will not be buying robots made in Austin. Right. They will only be buying robots made in Shanghai or wherever Tesla chooses to manufacture the bot. It'll have to be there, and the bot will have to be trained, localized to China. And the most important announcement they made was that they have stood up and are operating in full flight a training center. Sorry, not a training center, excuse me, a data center. That all China data is going to stay in China.
Right.
So we see the pieces in place for FSD in China, and we see the pieces in place for the bot in China. And so this is serious stuff. Tesla is entering the realm, and the Tesla haters are going to all say, yeah, China's going to beat their pants off, and they will. China will stand up just like BYD, they'll have a champion, and their champion will do very well. But Tesla will also do extremely well. There's place for everybody.
So speaking of FSD, Holmars, who's one of the number one guys in the X sphere now, said that he drove from Santa Monica to Palos Verdes today and back with no interventions. Now, for those who don't know that particular route, I know that route very well. I lived in Santa Monica. I lived in Culver City. I lived in Inglewood for a total of 50 years. I drove that route specifically from Santa Monica to almost Palos Verdes. I had a business in Lomita, which is right up against Palos Verdes. So I drove that exact route many, many times. And it is a difficult route. Santa Monica's got horrible traffic, and the 405 freeway that this is describing, that is considered to be one of the worst stretches. The part that goes right past Culver City and West LA is considered to be one of the worst stretches of freeway anywhere.
It's a 12-lane parking lot.
Yeah, 12-lane parking lot is exactly right. So I thought that was pretty impressive, even though he's been riding and put bajillions of miles in city, in highway, that he says back and forth with not a single interruption. That's pretty dang impressive, Larry. What do you think?
Yes, it is impressive, and I watched some of the video. I didn't have time. It's been a very busy period. I didn't have time to watch the whole thing. I will. I think that the most important news we heard this last week is that Cruise is in a state of suspension. And we also heard that Cruise intervenes about 2 to 4% of the time using drivers, remote drivers from a control site.
Right.
And they kind of, they minimized, they said it's not a really big cost, and but it's a big cost. It's a big number, and it's hard to see how they're going to become profitable. I think GM's going to pull the plug.
I absolutely agree with you.
And so much, so much for all the Tesla Q, cruise baiting or Waymo baiting.
Right.
I think these companies now begin to realize that their approach is not really scalable. It's not workable. The question is Tesla's approach scalable, workable without this kind of support? And, the jury's out on it. Nobody can say, yes, it's going to work. We feel confident it will. I do. But I think it's going to take longer than people think.
It could very well.
So, I think we've still got 2 years, 3 years ahead of us on this thing.
So on the economy, Barron said today, credit card balances experienced a large jump in the third quarter, but they said it was consistent with strong consumer spending and real GDP growth. And then across the board, about 3% of Americans' outstanding debt was in some stage of delinquency at the end of September, according to the bank's research. That is a 4.4% increase compared to the second quarter, but the figure is still 1.7 percentage points lower than at the end of 2019, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. And he go on to say, but the consumer is not, this is a separate report that I've reported on actually twice now, but I think it's important enough to say it a third time in this context. The consumer is not maxed out. They're actually reducing their overall credit and managing credit pretty well, according to Vantage Score CEO Silvio Tavares. The reality is that the consumer is actually very healthy.
It's a tale of two economies. The consumer is in great shape and the government is in terrible shape. It's terrible. But everything that you've read is confirmed by, let me show you the slide. It's really a fantastic slide. I got to share my screen, right? It confirms everything you say, because what we're looking at, this is S&P's net profit margin Q3.
It didn't share, Larry. So
it didn't share?
No, I can't see it.
To share.
I can't. There we go. All right.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't. Yeah. So what we're looking at is an S&P 500 sourced data. And need to actually give a credit on this, and I will give credit before we're done. The interesting thing is these are net margins, S&P margins. So if you take all the S&P 500, their net profit, and you aggregate them, and you come up with a number of their net profit margin as a percentage of revenue,
right.
Which is a very important number. It's a crucial number. If you go back to Q3 of 2018, it was 11.9%. Okay. It was a high watermark, and you'll see after that, going forward, it wasn't quite as good. Fourth quarter was all around 11 and dropped as far as 8.5 in Q2 of 2020. So that was the height of the pandemic, right? That was when the pandemic struck, everybody closed down.
Right.
And we were in, panic mode. And then you see it climb, and the climb obviously, is all about government pumping this gigantic amount of money into people's pockets, people stashing the money away, but nonetheless spending. And you saw profits climb to, I don't know if it's an all-time record, but certainly a pretty high number of 13% profit margin by Q2 of 2021. And then it leavened off as the pandemic money kind of subsided and the pandemic, dislocations kind of subsided. And by Q4 of 2022 was down to 11.2, right? You see that, 11.2.
Right.
Well, we're in Q3 of 23. And at Q3 of 23, we're actually at the point where with 81% of S&P reported, that's before this morning, so some more reports today, net margins are at 12.1%.
Yeah.
Which beats, the record of Q3 2018. That was an outlier.
Right.
Now, I don't know, maybe by the 100% mark, it'll drop a little bit. I don't think so, because when you got 81%, pretty good. So what this is telling us is that the real economy is doing very well, which means you were right and I may have been wrong.
Not wrong, just not as right.
No.
What it also tells me, Larry, is that I keep talking about a rotation.
Yeah.
So we've got these Magnificent Seven getting all of the pop in the stock market. The overall S&P is down 10% for the year, or it was prior to last week. It seems to me that there's going to be at some point a rotation, because there is strength in the entire S&P.
You're right. You're absolutely right. This shows a lot of strength, and there's no doubt about it. So yeah, I have to agree with you. I do.
All right. So we have one last big story before, then we have a couple of little stories. The last big story is on bonds. Now, Larry and I have been talking about bonds for months and months and months and months. And probably a lot of you are like, bonds, but you're so tired of hearing about bonds. It turns out that we were right to talk about bonds, because guess who else now spends headline after headline every day for months, for at least a couple of months, is the rest of the financial community finally saw what we were seeing all those months ago. This whole market has been moving to the bond market because of this interest rate issue and because of the underlying inflation issue. So we now have maybe the inflation thing under control. According to Randy, it's been under control for a while. According to the Trueflation, it's now at 2.25, 2.30. So what we've had now is really fast dropping rates. On the 10-year only, Larry, actually the 2-year and the 2-month are expanding out again.
Which means this inversion.
The inversion, yeah.
Where the short-term rates are higher than the long-term rates, which is an indicator that we're reaching or in a recession, is changing historically. And so what the market is telling us, what Mr. Market is saying, is that things are okay. Things are okay. And the long-term bond is dropping, which means that everybody who invested in bonds, as Stanley Druckenmiller told us to do, is making a fortune.
Right. Yes, which I said to do, which wasn't investment advice, and I didn't take my own advice. But I said, starting about 5 weeks ago, I said, man, these bonds up almost at 5%. This is a great opportunity, and it's a dual opportunity. And I still think it is not investment advice. I still think it's a great opportunity at 4.57, I think is where it was last time I looked, because you get you can guarantee yourself 10 years or whatever's left on the, you guarantee yourself that rate if you want to just clip coupons for the next however many years, and or the underlying bond value goes up as interest rates drop. So that's a double win. And some people are suggesting that that could be a 20 to 30% win over the next 12 months.
Right. And I just wanted to mention that slide that I showed,
yes,
was actually prepared by Nick Colas.
Okay.
He runs a firm called Data Trek. They do a daily newsletter. I've been getting it, and it's outstanding.
Okay.
And Nick Colas knows a lot about the auto market, so highly recommend him. Highly.
All right. Now, what we have tomorrow, Larry, so today we had a sale. The Treasury sold 3-month bonds.
Yeah.
Apparently it went fine. We've got the 10-year being sold tomorrow, one of the biggest amounts in history, $40 billion auction tomorrow. And then the 30 years are coming up on Thursday. And that's another big number. But the bond market went up today. The bonds went up, the yields went down today, even in anticipation of this big sale tomorrow. So it sounds as if, this bond the drop in yields is going to hang in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a good news Tuesday, right?
It's good news Tuesday. But you were worried that there might be one negative aspect to this, Larry.
I was.
Yeah, the Fed.
It's not that this is a negative aspect to this. It's a negative aspect to our future.
Well, the Fed said they wanted the bond market to do their work for them.
So, right now, the market seems to have enough liquidity to absorb this offering. But the offerings are going to come fast and furious and for a long time to come. So the real question is, how are we going to pay our way forward? How are we going to get through this? Because the Fed has built up a gigantic balance sheet. And, I've asked the question, how do they do it? How are we going to get through that? And, from the long-term perspective, it doesn't look great. Even the medium-term perspective doesn't look great. And, you talked about this record level auction. It will be a record level auction tomorrow. And the 30-year is going to be a big auction. Get used to it. There are going to be many big auctions. And at a point in time, there's going to be a, whoa.
Yes.
And we're going to stumble.
So, but the other issue, which I raised this morning in my show, and I was curious to get your take on it, is that the Fed says, okay, yeah, we're going to take a pause, and yeah, we'll probably pause in December and January and blah, blah, blah. But that's going to be partially because we're going to let the market take care of the tightening for us. And so now I've actually heard a couple of the Fed governors in speeches say, well, those interest rates are coming down fast. If they don't do the job for us, we might have to step back in.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And I thought it was nonsensical. I thought it was like, I'm sorry, are these people really running the Fed? I mean, give me a break. If the bond rates are coming down that fast, it's because the folks that are putting their money in bonds believe the inflation rate is down. It's just, I don't know.
How did the dollar do today?
The dollar is doing okay. Let me look at it. Let's take a look at here at the.
I know that oil ticked down, which is kind of indicative of the dollar ticking up.
Well, the dollar had gone down a little bit over the last couple of days, but now it's coming back a little bit.
Yeah,
but it's awfully strong. I mean, it's strong in general. And we've got Tesla in the after hours is now down 13 cents. So I'll go along with 13 cents. That's okay. And then let's take a look at the overall picture, Larry, just real quick. We have got the futures down, everything, I would call it even. The NASDAQ's down 9, S&P's down 1. The Dow is down 13. So I would say it's like no difference. Bitcoin, though, is up 425 after hours. So they're at 35.4.
Well, Kathy is expecting a huge rise in Bitcoin.
Yes, and she would be so thrilled.
Yeah, she said that, it's really a setup for Bitcoin. And you know what? I don't think she's wrong.
You may both be right. So
Yeah.
it says here, according to the headline, that the weak euro right now is helping the dollar. So the European markets are not doing so well, and so that's helping the dollar. Gold was up in after hours, but it's down to 1975. So that's a drop of about $35 over the last 10 days. Then we've got the oil. This is my favorite stat of the day. It's going down, continuing to go down after hours.
Is it below 80?
It's below 70. It was below 77 a minute ago. It's at 77.13.
Wow. I just fell off my chair.
and then with which that'll help inflation really, and apparently natural gas has fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
I've got to look into that, but I read
so there's a very good reason for that. If you look at Europe's situation, Europe is propvol.
I got it. Yeah,
it's the Afrikaans term. They're to the gills in natural gas. They're ready for winter. Now I don't know what kind of winter we're going to have. Who knows? But if it's not a terrible winter, Europe doesn't need any more natural gas.
Right, and so they don't have to worry about Russia. So the 10-year is even, call it even. It's down, 0.004. We've got the 2-month is up a basis point in the after hours, and the 2-year is, call it even again. So pretty much Goldilocks across the board. All right, Larry, I am just going to let everybody go that's only interested in economic issues. And those of you who want to stay, Larry and I are going to spend 3 or 4 minutes just talking about why we're wearing these Stars of David. And Larry was the one who didn't challenge me. That's not true at all. Larry said, I'm thinking about wearing the Star of David. And I said, should I wear it also? And he said, absolutely. So Larry, why are you wearing the Star of David?
For me, it's a sign of defiance. I lost family in the Shoah, in the Holocaust. I am just one of millions who lost millions. And, for us, this cry against the Jews, not the Israelis, but the cry against the Jews. I can understand if people are upset with the Israeli policy. I am myself somewhat upset with some of their policies, but it's turned into a hatred of Jews, and we know what it turns into, and it can be terrible. Now, I want to say that your courage and your stepping up to put on the badge, I don't know if you know about the tradition, but it's a very, very fabled tradition, because famously the King of Denmark was the first Dane to pin the cross on his shirt. Now, as you know, in Nazi Germany, the Jews were forced to wear the cross because that's the way they could be excluded from society.
Yes.
And of course, wherever the German Nazis conquered territory, they forced the Jews. And this was pending the liquidation of the Jews, the killing of the Jews, the murder of children, women, men, regardless of age. When Denmark was occupied, the Germans ordered the Danes to, mark the Jews. And the King of Denmark said, in Denmark, we are not going to do that. And if you insist, I will be the first to wear the badge in defiance. And so for me, it's a mark of defiance. It's, I stand. This is where I stand. And the fact that you're doing it is, a very great tradition started by a very great man.
And the reason I'm wearing it, I might have worn it anyway if we were seeing this anti-Semitism around the world. But where I could not stay silent, as has been repeated, that saying has been said so many times before, when they came for the Jews, I stayed silent. When they came for the gypsies, I stayed silent, but eventually they're going to come for me. And that's what we saw in World War II. That's, or, during the Nazi era. In the United States, we now have people who are openly stating that they think that the Jews should be eliminated from the state of Israel by whatever purpose, by whatever method. And you can't have that in this country and have me stand silent. It's not going to happen.
And Randy, I have to tell you that the cries have even reached the point where they're calling for the elimination of the Jews from the United States as well. So
yes, yeah. So
anyway, I appreciate you very much, and these are very tough times to live through. My heart breaks for the people in under the bombs in Gaza, and I really don't believe that the Palestinians in the West Bank are treated correctly. I'm against the current policies of the state of Israel, but this is no basis to eliminate and just kill Jews because they happen to be Jews.
Right. Yeah, and as I've mentioned before, I have very strong feelings about the politics of Israel. I have very strong feelings about the way the war is being conducted. Larry and I would probably even be in maybe some ways disagreeing about the way the policies are being, about the way the war is conducted. But the truth is that's not my subject matter for this channel. I'll have that conversation with you over a drink, but that's not my conversation on this channel. It's not politics. This is not politics. This is humanity. This is just basic, straight up. I don't care what race, color, creed, or anything else there is about you. The way that you are born, or the way that you are, whatever your heritage is, should have nothing to do with your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I not in this country. We got to keep. We have to start somewhere. This is where I'm starting.
All right, man.
Okay, all right.
A great day. Great Tuesday. Good News Tuesday.
That's right. Thank you, Larry, and to all of you out there. It's been great talking to you.